hardest hits, the toughest catches, and NFL excitement at its best. It's in the cards for 94. Get ready for Buddy Bowl. Season tickets available at all Dillards or call the Cardinals today.
Imagine a place where tales are tall, the air is pure, and dreams run free.
I feel the music in my heart when my tenor sings.
Day prototype set, the official cards of the 1994 NFL Draft. It's a limited edition set featuring the first pro cards of top picks Marshall Faulk, Dan Wilkinson, Trent Dilfer, Heath Schuler, and Antonio Langham, plus a bonus card of 1989 #1 selection Troy Aikman. A total of 12 cards in all. Each card features each player associated with a different NFL team because you can never tell who's going to draft whom. Remember, this is a limited edition set of 9,400, so these cards could go all away.
I knew I should have patented that thing. Welcome back to the NFL Draft. The Detroit Lions are on the clock. We have about 4.5 minutes for Detroit. The one team, and everybody forgets this, the one team that went wire to wire in winning their division last year, the NFC Central. For some insight on the Lions, let's go out to Indy, just down the road a piece from Detroit, and check in with Chris Mortensen. Mort, Lions offensive line, where do you see them going?
I tell you, Chris, I think this is the stage of the draft where teams start to get disappointed. The Lions came into this draft looking for a speed cornerback. Hey, Dwayne Washington, Aaron Glenn would have been ideal, of course, but Washington's gone, Glenn is gone. Maybe a Thomas Randolph here, Anthony Phillips, but you mentioned offensive line. You know, they released Bill Fralick, but a bunch of other offensive linemen have been taken, so I think the Lions are a little disappointed. But for a little bit more insight, why don't we go to a former Lion, Gary Danielson.
I do broadcast the preseason games for the Lions, and I know they were interested in bolstering their defensive backfield. The other thing that you have to think about is the Vikings took two of the guys that the Lions were interested in, Stussy and Washington, so a double hurt there. Somebody in the division stealing guys. I think they have to look at Johnny Morton, though. They have a great receiver there, Herman Moore, but Johnny Morton there, I don't think they thought they'd fall that far. I agree with Randolph, but might surprise you. Chuck Smith pull a draft pick here and take Johnny Morton.
All right, Gary, thank you. We'll check back with you shortly. And Mort, Joe, the Lions have about 3 minutes left on the clock here. Scott Mitchell, boy, you talk about a club. They may make a great move, but $11 million, new quarterback played. You talk about a guy that didn't play much, just 7 games with the Dolphins, plus a question about his shoulder, even though he came back late last year. You can answer that question
I'll answer that in a minute.
After we get the pick.
Okay.
I guess I need to say, Joe, that's it, right? The Lions have made their pick. Let's see what's up.
With the 21st pick in the first round, the Detroit Lions have selected Johnny Morton, wide receiver, USC.
Well, Gary nailed it. Second wide receiver to go.
The Los Angeles Raiders are now on the clock.
Johnny Morton, so as we know Scott Mitchell's shoulder or not, we'll have a wide receiver to throw to. Let's go back to Scott Mitchell. Big gamble for Detroit or a good move?
I don't think it's a big gamble. I know when Scott Mitchell was out there shopping and looking for a team, everybody worked him out. They took a hard look at him. I think they basically got what they were looking for. They're looking for somebody strong in the middle. He's not going to run away from anybody, which is going to be a big contrast for what has gone on in Detroit over the last couple of years with Andre Ware and Rodney Peete. Give you a little bit bigger version of maybe an Eric Kramer. The offense of the Detroit Lions has got to change. It's going to have to be Barry Sanders featured, Scott Mitchell making good, decisive throws. The days of the run and shoot are over. You will not see Scott Mitchell in a run and shoot. If you do, you will not see Scott Mitchell very long. That's just a case in point. I think it's a good choice, but again, not only in Detroit, but other places around the league, there are a lot of second stringers, supposedly second stringers, I guess you could say, that are now given their chance to chase their star and see if it can rise. I think he's one of many that'll be given the opportunity to become bona fide stars in this league.
Let's go back down, Joe, to Gary Danielson in Phoenix. And Gary, a question about Scott Mitchell's shoulder. Is there a question about it?
Chris, I spoke to both Chuck Smith, general manager with the Detroit Lions, and Ron Hughes, director of player personnel, about this. They said it is not a problem. Scott Mitchell has been in Detroit going to meetings with new offensive coordinator Tom Moore, has been throwing already. They say it's not a problem at all, and they say that, there are a lot of people offering a lot of money to him, and they're real happy with the way he's throwing the ball so far. I think you also got to take your hat off to Chuck Schmidt again. A decisive move. Last year he goes and gets Pat Swilling. He took the best player available on the board, and with the cap now, you can go out and sign need players. He took a player that he thought was the best. Chris?
All right, Gary, thank you. One note about Detroit before I ask Mel about the pick here is that to back up Mitchell in experience, they got a guy who has done it before, David Craig, who they signed this year to back him up for about $1 million a year. And we all know what Craig did, as a starter at Seattle, and did a good job. But certainly coming in last year and spelling Joe Montana, doing a fine job for the Chiefs. So the Lions did make a good move in that regard. Did they make a good move with this draft? They got Herman Moore. You got Willie Green, the color of money. You got Perriman. You got some receivers there, Mel.
Got some receivers. You got a good one in Johnny Morton, though, a guy that I thought was better as a senior than Curtis Conway was when he came out of USC following his junior year. And, of course, Curtis Conway went top 10 overall. Johnny Morton really flourished in John Robinson's pro system. You see the ability to put a fake on a cornerback and go deep, burst to the ball, and then make the catch. I think he is prepared to come in right away and play, unlike Conway, who was not. So I think it's a good value pick. I think they had to strongly consider Thomas Randolph at this stage because of need. Randolph would have been able to maybe step in at cornerback opposite Robert Massey and do a job, but I think Johnny Morton was the best player on the board at this stage.
All right, Mel, so Morton goes. Remember, the Lions did not have a first-round pick last year. This is their first #1 pick in the 2 seasons. They go Morton. And now next on the clock, with about 11 minutes to go, the Raiders, the silver and black. We'll be back.
Today's engines need Castrol GTX, the motor oil that provides maximum protection against viscosity and thermal breakdown. Because if your oil breaks down, what's next? Castrol GTX, engineered for today's smaller cars.
So you're with your friends at a bar.
What are you folks having?
What?
You go first. No, I don't know.
Beer? No. Wine cooler?
What?
You want something different.
Something
What?
different.
What do you have?
Whatever he's having.
What? Seems tasty, but not too sweet.
It's not a too sweet.
What? So you try it. What?
Seema.
Dowie.
See what I mean?
What's your spleen?
Nice hat.
Airbags, seat belts, and anti-lock brakes, child safety seats, careful driving, and a set of Michelins.
To build a Mercedes-Benz that's technologically innovative, safe, roomy, with exceptional handling is to be expected. But to do it for under $30,000, now that's a feat of engineering. Introducing the Mercedes-Benz C-Class.
Toss me the ball.
Ken Griffey Jr.'s always played hardball. That's why Ken Griffey Jr. presents Major League Baseball as wall-to-wall action, only on the Super NES Sports Network. It's the one game that plays in Ken's league.
Let's see you hit.
Walter Payton puts it on pasta. Payne Stewart, blackened salmon. Dan Marino, wings. So what do you put it on?
Yow!
Tabasco.
Sports Center now at new times, 6:30 and 11 p.m. weekdays.
Now on the clock, the Los Angeles Raiders with about a little under 9 minutes to go in their selection. Everyone has penned that the Raiders need a running back. And Mel, with only Marshall Faulk gone, if indeed this is their running back, they like the youngster Robinson, did a good job last year. The second leading rusher coming back is your quarterback, Jeff Hostetler. The fullback, they're set. Right. But if they want a running back, they've got their pick. let's maybe go to your board. Who might they look out here? Bates has been a name bandied about.
Mario Bates would be perfect for Al Davis, who has been searching for the next Bo Jackson for several years. Mario Bates is 217 pounds. He's been running 4.37s. Another junior, if you projected the next year's draft, is right up at the top. LaShawn Johnson probably would have gone to Chicago with the 11th pick had they not signed Louis Tillman from the New York Giants. So Johnson, Bates would be two guys that would figure right at this point. And it's really not a surprise that running back slid, because Johnson was the only one that was projected maybe to Chicago. Everybody else was projected mid to late first round.
Can I throw a scenario out here to Mel for a second? How about the Garrison Hurst deal? Let's say Buddy needs a cornerback. Randolph's a heck of a football player, right? He's still on the board. That helps Buddy out as far as the secondary goes. Now all of a sudden, Al gets what he wants in a running back who's already not a rookie, but somebody he can count on. And all of a sudden, Randolph winds up exactly where Buddy wants.
Won't happen, Joe, and I'll tell you why. First of all, Garrison Hurst's contract situation, after talking to Buddy Ryan, is such where if they dealt him off, they would still have to pick up some of that money. And with the salary cap, Buddy said it can't happen. Hurst has to remain with the Arizona Cardinals.
Running back is a position that the Raiders have not drafted in the first round since Marcus Allen. That obviously worked. Al, I believe, has never drafted a linebacker in the first round, but yet there are some, Mel. And another player that you have coming up on the board here is Rob Fredrickson. Is that a possibility?
Very good possibility. Rob Fredrickson is a guy like a Timmy Bowens from Mississippi who really moved up with the workouts after a solid Senior Bowl and an outstanding senior year at Michigan State, working under George Perlis. Fredrickson's a 238-pounder, regarded as the best coverage linebacker in the draft. So, yeah, for the 49ers, Fredrickson would make a lot of sense.
All right, let's go up to Bristol and join our Hank Goldberg, a longtime watcher of the Raiders. Hank, any clue here? Is it running back, or is that too obvious?
I think they'll go with the obvious. Tim Bowens was a name I heard from the Raiders and the Dolphins. The Dolphins got him. The Raiders didn't think that LaShawn Johnson would be there when the pick came up. They were talking about Rhett, and they were talking about Mario Bates. So they may go with LaShawn Johnson. Their only other need is a tight end, and they can satisfy that in the second round.
All right, Hank, the card has gone up. Yeah, remember they lost Horton to the Redskins. They're looking at the Raiders card. And here it is.
With the 22nd pick in the first round, the Raiders suggest Rob Fredrickson, linebacker, Michigan State.
Can you give me an attaboy, Mel?
There you go.
Well, linebacker, like we said, and I'm going to check this. I don't believe Al Davis has ever picked a linebacker in the first round. Of course, he's obviously gotten some great linebackers like Ted Hendricks, or from other teams, or farther down the list. Rod Martin was such a fine player for him, and on and on and on. But this really is a need on the ball club. We put up the running backs. Linebacker, yes.
Outside linebacker for the Raiders and the 49ers was a need. Fredrickson's a guy, like I said, came on strong as a senior, has outstanding size. He's a rangy kid, 238-pounder, 4.65 speed on that frame. You see him here coming off the corner, number 83, dropping off, sliding into coverage very easily. Did this against Louisville in their bowl game, did it throughout the season in the Big Ten, and did it most importantly at the Senior Bowl practices and in that game. And that is what moved Fredrickson into the late first round, along with his combine workout, which was regarded as one of the best for the outside linebacker. So it's a need pick. Surprised they didn't go running back. We have to wait and see if they go for a veteran. Maybe Harvey Williams is out there. But certainly in the second round, I think the Raiders have to address that running back spot.
All right, well, the Raiders have made their selection. They have gone with the linebacker, Rob Fredrickson. Now let's move up to Foxborough and join Tom Jackson. Tommy, linebacker Fredrickson to the Raiders, surprising, or do you think running back was more their need? Of course, they can still get one.
I thought running back was more of a need for him, Chris. Actually, the only team that they ran the ball well against last year was my old team, the Denver Broncos. But certainly Fredrickson is a good pick for them. He has great feet. I think the thing that when I watched him a little bit on film, was he had a very good closing burst, better speed than you would think that he has. Good size for a linebacker. It's not a bad pick for the Raiders, but certainly I thought they needed a running back. Let's go back to New York.
Well, Tommy, don't go away quite yet. We get you for a little bit here. We don't want to lose you right away. The Raiders, remember, they beat the Bills late in the year, and they almost beat them in the playoff game. Next to Buffalo, do you feel that the Raiders perhaps are the next big contender to the Bills' throne, the crown that they've worn in the AFC the last 4 years?
I think certainly in the AFC, this is the next up-and-coming team. That's why